Hey, Cinners, how you doing? Sean here from the Sinful Cuts podcast, and I am introducing you to Philip Fracassi, who needs no introduction whatsoever because you already know his work and you love his work. You may even love Philip because he's so handsome and he's so talented and he's so fun. You're going to get a little slice of that all over the place with this interview that we did. We sat down and we talked to Philip about his work, and we talked to him about the movie Drag Me to Hell. Philip has so much going on right now. His short story, Alter, is actually being adapted into a major motion picture. Oh, I just love saying that. Major motion picture. I'm going to be kid. I'm going to make you a star. That's what I feel like when I say major motion picture. I can't wait for this. The short story was insanely terrifying. I cannot wait to see how they bring it to the screen, and it is going to curl our toes in fright, and I cannot wait for that. Starring Kyle MacLachlan, David Krumholtz, and January Jones, just to name some of that talent. So Philip, oh boy howdy, your 2024 is just a crackerjack. But let's talk about some of the things that you've done and some of the accolades that you have. You are the author of Gothic, a book that looks strangely similar to this in my hand right now because it is Gothic. And then how about A Child Alone with Strangers? Oh my goodness, this book. Oh, okay, just leave it there. But that is not all. How about Don't Let Them Get You Down? And Boys in the Valley is a novel that came out in 2023 and just basically set the world ablaze. And if you weren't on the Philip train at that point, then you certainly are right now. So much good work, so much good work to come. We're so excited to see where Philip goes and what comes next. So, but you know, let's talk about some of the fantastic accolades that our friend Philip has achieved. So, he has been nominated for and or won the short story collection of the year from This Is Horror. He won for Behold the Void. The Charles Dexter Award from Strange Eons magazine. He won again for Behold the Void. The best short story collection of 2021 from Tor Nightfire, Beneath a Pale Sky. The best collection of the year from Rue Morgue magazine. He won for Beneath the Pale Sky. And how about this? You want to just throw a little icing and a cherry on top of the cake? Not really sure how cakes are made. You both just discovered that right now. How about the Bram Stoker Award for Best Fiction Collection? He was nominated in 2021 for Beneath a Pale Sky. So, Philip, how about you calm down for 2 seconds? I mean, you're really showing everybody up with all these awards and accolades and Hollywood at your beck and call. Good gracious. And you were so humble and delightful in our time together when we discussed Drag Me to Hell. So everyone sit back, dine out on Philip's incredible stories and the fun we had. And I know that you love Drag Me to Hell, but boy, oh boy, are you going to love this conversation we had with Philip Fracassi. Here we go. Woohoo!
Hey, Cinners, I'm Shannon.
And I'm Sean.
And this is Sinful Cuts.
And we have none other than the incredible author, Philip Fracassi, with us tonight. Philip, I can't even tell you how excited we are to have you on, especially talking about Drag Me to Hell, because your novel Gothic is such a fantastic pair along with this movie. But I mean, I feel like you are surfing this incredible wave with 2024. We want to congratulate you for the acquisition with A24 for Alter. We cannot wait to see that movie. Something tells me I'm going to harass you at a later date to come back on and talk about that, but I should probably wait to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Thank you so much for being here. We really do appreciate it. Excuse me, guys. Well, I just plug in my internet. Okay, there, and that's better. So the process that we have, and our listeners know, is that I reach out to people like yourself, and I say, "Oh, would you please come on?" And when you're gracious enough to say, "Yeah, I would love to," I send you a list of movies, and you didn't hesitate to email back and say, Drag Me to Hell is my movie. I mean, it was fast and furious. So our first question for our guests is always, Why this movie? What about this movie resonated with you?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's important to start with the fact that I'm a huge Sam Raimi fan because he was my idol growing up, honestly. And, Evil Dead 2, obviously, is on so many people's all-time favorite list, but I just love his style. I love the way he handles horror. And I'm just a big fan of his work. So when Drag Me to Hell, I felt like when I first saw it, I felt like it was sort of him kind of going back to those horror roots after doing some more commercial stuff. And
completely agree.
And it kind of reminded me of that same vibe as like Darkman and Evil Dead 2, which was like this sort of really over the top campy horror, but with a lot of focus on story. And I just Drag Me to Hell, I think I would say that. I think Drag Me to Hell probably, even though it's Sam Raimi, I think it surprised me more than maybe his other movies, because I think I knew more what to expect going into like Darkman or going into Evil Dead 2. So I think when I saw Drag Me to Hell, I wasn't really expecting kind of that more of that throwback Raimi horror vibe. And I remember just being like giddy in the theater watching this film. And I think I had seen it, I don't know, I'm going to go with 50 or so times. It's definitely one of my top. Oh yeah, it's one of my top 10 all-time films. And there's just so much fun with it. I mean, I think for me, I think I put some of that. I'll often put some of that vibe into my writing. You mentioned Gothic, and Gothic is a bit of an homage to Sam Raimi and Stephen King for me, where it's sort of written in the style of, in the prose style of King, but it's written, the story is very much in the vibe of Raimi. And there's a couple scenes in that book that are, to say that I wrote that book so that Sam Raimi would one day direct the film adaptation would not be overstepping. I've been trying to get that book into his hands for a long time. And but Drag Me to Hell, it's just one of those ones that is, it's just one of those ones that really sparked interest with me. And because it's important, is this a spoiler-free conversation, or are we assuming?
Oh, we can spoil the hell out of it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
spoil the hell out of it.
Okay, because I was just going to say, like, my favorite part of that film is the end. Is the fact that she loses was a masterful touch. And so that
absolutely
was that look on Justin Long's face when he's got the arm extended, when he's looking down into hell.
That poor character. I thought he played such a great balance.
Yeah. Still holding the button. Yeah. And the whole switcheroo with the button in the coin. I mean, it was just, there's so many moments where I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but there's so many moments in that film that are just classic horror moments. Anytime you have a movie that you can recall 4 or 5 specific scenes from, and like, and then there was this scene, and then there was this scene, like that already puts that movie into the 1 percentile of great films, because so many movies are so forgettable, and Drag Me to Hell is a movie that is the opposite in my mind of forgettable.
Oh, completely.
All my notes that I have written down for tonight are all the scenes that I want to talk about, and there's at least 10.
Right. Yeah.
At least 10 that I have.
I can't. Yeah. It's exciting.
Philip, I've got to circle back before we proceed, though. I've got to point this out, though. I couldn't agree more that there are definitely elements of Drag Me to Hell in Gothic, but I will go as far as to say there are absolutely elements of Raimi's Simple Plan in Boys in the Valley, like the heartfelt, that just tear your heart out. You just want it. You're like aching for these characters, and I will say that I would make the correlation that you can definitely feel Raimi in that aspect in Boys in the Valley as well. I felt it.
Yeah, I haven't heard that comparison before, but I appreciate it. Anytime anyone compares anything I do to anything that Sam Raimi does, I'm flattered and humbled and super grateful. So I appreciate it. Yeah, he's also done the blockbuster stuff, and I think one of the funnest things that Raimi has done recently is when he did the Marvel movie. And I love that he brought so many Raimi elements into the Doctor Strange movie. And the fact that that's really a Marvel horror movie, I mean,
right?
Is
right.
I wanted that was another movie that surprised me because I wasn't sure really what to expect because, he had done Spider-Man and stuff like that. So I knew he'd done the more commercial stuff. So the fact that he really turned up the gas at the end of that Doctor Strange movie to make it as bonkers as it was really fun. But yeah, I'm a big, he's a major, like I said, he's a major influence, on me. So I'm sure his fingerprints are all over my work.
Those are good fingerprints to have, though, for sure. Yeah. Those are good fingerprints to have. All right, so guys, I guess we'll get to the hard yards here. We'll start with Drag Me to Hell. Raimi writes this with Ivan Raimi, and they had written it. This thing was kicking around in their heads for a while, and they had written it 10 years before it ever saw one frame. So, I think he was biding his time. I know the Marvel stuff probably absorbed so much of his schedule, but the fact that he got around to it and that he kind of wanted to maybe shake off a little bit of what he had done previously and get back to his roots. Yeah. And it's almost like playing the hits. And I mean that in the best way possible. I mean, we get the Raimi cam and we get the nihilistic ending and we get so much kinetic energy in this movie that when I saw it for the first time in the theater, when the credits rolled, when we get that end scene with Justin Long, and Allison Lonely gets dragged down to hell.
Her eyes are bulging out as she's being dragged into hell.
Then it's just, then the credits come up and then bam, that smash cut of Drag Me to Hell. And I'm like, you son of a bitch. You did it again. And I couldn't be happier. And as a horror fan, I mean, I can't really remember. This was 2009?
Yeah, I was about to ask. I'm curious. It must have been between the Spider-Man movies. I'm assuming Spider-Man 1 had already come out, and then
it did. It had to have been between. It had to have been. Yeah. So I'm thinking, like I said,
only there was some sort of digital internet online resource that has this kind of information that we could utilize. But
I know.
Philip,
so crazy.
You're being kind. What you need to say is, if only these podcasters were good at their jobs.
I would look it up, but I don't want to be rude. But yeah, I think it's probably after the first. It's probably after the first couple Spider-Mans, I would think. I remember that was part of why I was so excited because it was like, oh, there's Raimi. There he is. He's back.
Yeah. So Spider-Man was 2002.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so, okay. Yeah.
So, it was like 5 years after. Yeah.
And then the only thing he didn't have, I don't think, I could be, I mean, unless someone wants to correct me, I don't believe Bruce Campbell makes a cameo in Drag Me to Hell.
He doesn't.
Not that I know.
I was surprised about that.
He must have been filming something else somewhere.
He in the research that I did, he had commitments to Burn Notice at the time, and I found out
that show.
Yeah, I found out. Well, Bruce Campbell, but he had done a cameo for The Quick and the Dead as well, but that got cut. So that
did it? Interesting.
Which breaks my heart. I'm like, Sam, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Gotta have
imagine the conversation that he and Bruce Campbell probably had. But that was another great Sam Raimi movie that's underappreciated, by the way, Quick and the Dead.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, his CV of movies, they're just, look, I'm not going to say that he doesn't have some slight misses, but for the most part, it's just banger after banger after banger. And to, start your career with Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, I mean, it's just like, it's unbelievable what he's gone on to do, the trajectory of his career with the Spider-Man movies. And like you said, Philip, Doctor Strange, which I honestly adored because it was Raimi plastered all over the screen. Now, the thing about Doctor Strange was that, Scott Derrickson, I believe, was
did the first
directing.
One.
Yeah, and
Derrickson directed the first one.
Yeah. And came back for the second, but then dropped out. And they really didn't have a lot of time. They reached out to Sam And he said, sure, I'll do it. But I think, and I could be wrong, I might be putting my foot in my mouth, but I think he only had about 90 days of pre-production before they started shooting. Wow. So for what we ended up with what he had to work with, that's movie is, come on. I mean,
I think he pulled it off. I think he said like the zombie elements of that movie, I think he said he didn't. I mean, I remember him reading about an interview with him and he was like, that wasn't me. Like that was already in the movie. But, you know, I was kind of like, oh, come on. Are you sure? Yeah. I find that very hard to believe. But he kind of made a point of saying the kind of the horror elements that were in Doctor Strange 2. He's like, really, he was saying like in this interview that I saw, he really didn't have much to do with that. He was just kind of coming to your point. He's going to come in the last minute to like film the film. When you watch the movie, it's so Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
That, you know, so I think he probably did more than he probably is giving himself credit for. But
I agree.
Because that chomping zombie Doctor Strange was too Raimi not to be Raimi.
Yeah.
The whole scene, and I swear we'll get to Drag Me to Hell, but that whole scene.
Let's just talk about Doctor Strange 2. Yeah.
That whole scene in the underground tunnels when Doctor Strange and the crew are making the escape and Scarlet Witch is chasing them, and then you can hear like he plays around with sound as Sam Raimi does. So it's genius level. The way he plays around with sound. And I just watched that. I mean, I saw the movie about 3-4 times. And every time I see that scene, I just dine out on it because it is so quintessential Sam Raimi. And he's having fun. You can tell he's having fun, which that's what I want to see on screen is a filmmaker really enjoying themselves. So
yeah. And the sound thing, I'm glad you brought up the sound thing because that was one of my mental notes is to discuss when we talked about the movie was really how much in Drag Me to Hell, how much he really uses sound to create, to create some of the horrific moments to the point where I did a rewatch in preparation for our viewing, our discussion, and it was even more than it was even more than I had recalled. Like there are moments in the movie where I think when she's in the house, when she goes home and it's the first she's been cursed, and Loman goes home. And there's like this movie where she's literally just like looking here and looking there. And the camera's like showing like a corner of her house and then showing like a random window. Visually, if you were watching the movie and you had the sound off, it would just look like you were looking at parts of the house. But the sound is like, whatever. And you're just like, oh, geez, what's going on? But I was thinking about it while I was watching. I was like, if you were to turn off the sound, this would look like nothing was happening. And he uses it so effectively and he makes such a point to use it. And I was also, and we can get more into it, but the other thing I was going to say was sound and shadow and just like,
shadow.
I mean, how much money does he save on visual effects by just having these sound guys and, a light gag, and this quick camera and the way it's like,
how much scarier is that? Yeah, right. How much scarier is just a shadow or a silhouette? To me, that freaks me out even more, especially when it when a shadow starts like as one shape and then it starts like stretching.
And which this movie has in spades. And
guys, I have to call a team timeout. We're getting to all of the good bits.
Sorry.
We have to start the movie.
Let's stay linear. Yeah.
Philip, what we do is you just stole the words out of my mouth. We go linear, but what we do is we basically, we talk about the set pieces and what resonated with us and what we truly love. We don't go beat by beat because, we've done that before and it just takes forever and it kind of turns into a dry conversation. So we really just point out and discuss, in a linear fashion, what really hits for the viewer. So if it's okay with you guys, I'll start it off with the beginning, with the cold open, which is one of my favorite cold opens to a Raimi movie for sure, and one of my favorite cold opens to a film in general, because you start off, it's frantic, it goes kinetic almost immediately, and then it ends with the death of a child.
Yeah.
Yep.
Immediately, Raimi is like, all bets are off.
Yeah.
all bets are off. And it kind of, I mean, look, it completely foreshadows the film, almost to a T, if not to a T.
It. Yeah. Bookends the whole thing.
It sets up stakes, which I love in a film. If we can get the stakes set early, then okay, I know where we're going, and I know, how important this is for Alison Lohman, to actually beat this thing if at all possible. But, immediately you're kind of on your heels because you're like, it doesn't seem like it's going to be easy or possible at all. And then the fate that is waiting for her is truly horrific. I mean, that little boy gets swallowed up real quick.
Yeah. After he takes the balcony dive, which is already pretty extreme. Yeah. And his parents are screaming and crying and all that stuff. And yeah, and he's even worse in some ways than what happened to Lohman's character, because he just, I guess he stole a bracelet or something.
And I was just off a wagon and tried to give it back. Yeah.
And I was like, man, they cursed his soul to hell? A little kid's soul to hell for swiping a bracelet?
Must have been a nice bracelet.
I thought it was a little extreme, but I understood what Raimi was going for. But yeah, to your point, Sean, yeah, Raimi immediately established the stakes of the film by saying, like, if I'm going to kill a kid in the first, 5 minutes, just imagine what else is going to happen. And
yeah.
And I think it definitely, like kicked off. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you saw. Yeah.
Philip, I'll just, I just want to point out one thing. We had a great conversation with Emily Hughes. We had done an episode on It Follows and Night of the Demon, which unfortunately, due to tech issues, we had to scrap. We're going to circle back to it at a later date and re-record it. But we were talking about Curse of Night of the Demon. It's got like 15 names, but this in Drag Me to Hell, the little boy is cursed for swiping that necklace off of a wagon. Right. Seems insanely extreme. But I'll go one step further. Curse of the Demon is even worse because Carswell curses Dana Andrews. And all Dana Andrews does is say, you don't know how to do spells. And he's like, fuck you, you're dead in 3 days.
Right. Yeah.
It's just to show him that I can.
Yeah. And then it's almost, and then I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but then, and then the extreme, like, it seems like the extreme, like Lohman, like, what Alison Lohman's character in the movie? I don't remember.
Christine.
Christine. Yeah, such a generic name. So, no offense to any Christines out there. But, it's hard to remember. But yeah, so Christine, because I feel weird calling her Alison Lohman every time. Like what she does to get the same curse seems way more intense.
Oh yeah,
and well earned to a degree.
And I think it's a great point because it leads the audience at you're walking out of the theater and you're in your car, or maybe you're with your friends and you're having a piece of pie and you're discussing it and you're like, did she deserve it? And you can easily go back and forth of she did, no, she didn't, she did, because she really does. She makes this rash decision kind of on the fly, and had she not had the conversation with David Paymer, she probably would have gone out of her way to make sure that Mrs. Ganush was taken care of. That she didn't have this. There's that, Sam Raimi has stated in interview after interview.
She really wanted that assistant bank manager job.
Yeah,
and
she did.
And he wanted to set the stakes of, look, this happens to this poor young woman because she makes one rash decision based and rooted in greed, and it's the end of her, which is kind of delicious when you think about it.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, guys. I set up the beginning, then we introduce Christine and we introduce her boyfriend, Justin Long, who's a professor, and they have this, adorable relationship, which seems to be heading toward a proposal on Justin Long's part. And he's got to kind of overcome his stiff parents and there's that subplot. But we get, we have this establishing scenes of this great relationship and everything seems fantastic. Until Mrs. Ganush sits down and we've already established that, Christine is hungry for a promotion, and
she's got the other guy who's vying for the same job.
The competition is Stu.
Fucking Stu.
Yeah. But I'll take it one step further than her does she deserve it or not conversation, which is what's the old lady's name, Sean? You mentioned her?
Mrs. Ganush. By the way, I have to point out that she's Hungarian, so her grandmother name would be Baba, so she's basically Baba Ganoush. So that's Sam Raimi taking the piss.
Oh, that's interesting. I remember. So Mrs. Ganoush, while I was watching the movie, I was kind of like, she has had 2 extensions. I don't know. Does she really deserve a 3rd extension? At one point, do you? And everyone's going to make everyone's sort of villainizing her for being like, oh, you were so mean to this old woman. She's like, look, I mean, the bank's given her 2 extensions. At some point, you got to pay your bills.
It's a fair pay your bills. Well, sure, it is. That's what I was nice about it. Yeah.
She was nice about it. And it wasn't until, we're going to get into it, but it wasn't until she did the whole drop to her knees and begged. And then she was like, you shamed me. And it's like, you kind of shamed yourself.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. Yeah. It really is the next scene, and it does establish the curse. And Philip, you knocked it out of the park. She shames herself. Alison Lohman is she's an unwilling participant in the whole scene. She just happens to be the poor schlub that had Mrs. Ganoush sit in her seat. I mean, I guess she is the bank loan officer, so it was inevitable. But I mean, Mrs. Ganoush, Baba Ganoush, she really does escalate it from 0 to 60 in no time flat, and leaves Alison Lohman, Christine, no other choice really than to call security, because there's a scene going on in a bank.
And she doesn't actually curse her in the bank. She curses her later.
You're absolutely right, in the parking garage. You're absolutely right.
After, which we'll get, I'm trying very hard to stay linear, you guys. But I didn't want to.
I know it's so hard.
But when we get to the parking garage scene, which is a classic, it is the culmination of that scene, which is a whole nother level of what is this lady? What is she doing? Now she's physically attacked. Well, I don't want to get. Are we moving into that scene? Are we done with the bank?
Let's do it. Yeah. No, we're there.
I think it's the end of the bank.
My notes are all over the place. I'm just finding it.
Philip, you're spot on, because we end the bank scene, and then it's the end of the workday,
and then she goes down to the parking garage, and she is physically assaulted by the woman who is broken into her car, is in her back seat, physically attacks her, bites her. The car crashes, all that stuff happened, and then it isn't until she, at the end of that big fight scene, set piece, where she's like, I beat you, you bitch, or whatever. And it's only then that she curses her. So, and here, let me go back to the kid. The kid stole a bracelet.
Yeah.
Alison Lohman has taken away her home, shamed her in front of all the people in the bank, had them knock down, drag out, parking lot fight with her, kicked her out onto the thing, called her a bitch, and only then did she qualify for the big curse. And I was like, all I could think about was all the kid did was take a bracelet, and he was cursed. This is way more earned. It was almost like she got to a point where she just the woman just was Baba Ganesh was just so furious that she just out of just rage, out of road rage almost, just basically cursed her. And it was almost like it was a last thing, a last step. And then she was like, now you'll come begging to me. And it was almost like she was almost intimating that I'll let it go. I won't make you go to hell, but I'm going to make you beg for your life. And then, of course, what happens next.
And then she dies after that.
And then she dies. I didn't want to get ahead of it, but then she dies. Yeah.
We established.
And then the disgusting mouth. No, I was just going to say, and that's when the disgusting mouth trauma begins.
The teeth come out a few times. They really enjoyed putting the.
I might gag a few times. I'm not gonna lie.
They put like a goo on the teeth so that whenever she took the teeth out, there was sort of like this string
There's so much goo in this movie. There's so many fluids. Poor Christine gets so many fluids on her face and in her mouth that it actually becomes a gag in the movie when she has that torrential nosebleed. And all David Paymer wants to know is, did it get in my mouth? Did it get in my mouth?
Right, which is a great line. A great line. He delivers it perfectly.
Sam Raimi is having so much fun. You could just picture him off to the side laughing hysterically with all of these sight gags. I mean, he really is getting after it, and I'm so happy for him. You know?
And it was foreshadowing, I think, a little bit because in the car in the fight, for no reason at all that makes any logical sense, the teeth get knocked out, right, of her mouth. I think they hit a thing, and her immediate next move is to begin gumming Alison Lohman's face. And I'm like, that's not even like a move. That's just like something that Raimi's doing for pure like joy of the disgustingness of it. And she was just like,
the Three Stooges.
She immediately her first response was when she got knocked out was to grab Alison Lohman and just start gumming her face, which was by the end of the movie. And I won't jump. I'll say it's foreshadowing to what happens later in the movie during the graveyard scene. But I will say this, and we'll get to the graveyard scene. But I will say this: when I was watching the graveyard scene, after watching all this other stuff that Raimi put Alison Lohman through, the actress, there was a big part of it that was like, well, at least now I know why she stopped acting, because if I think if most people had gone through what she had to go through to make this movie, they might have been like, that's it. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go raise baby goats and have a family, and that'll be that.
Saliva, blood, maggots. I mean, there's just so much goo that is just hurled at this poor woman. But hey, look, you're gonna do a Raimi film. You kind of sign up for it, you know?
Yeah. Ain't all sound effects.
Exactly.
And shadows.
Now we have our curse. Now she takes the button and holds it up, and then she, curses her, and Alison Lohman has, it's kind of like that like wafting effect of like, okay, here we go. So Lamia is now involved. So I was curious. I'm like, I wonder if this is a real thing. And it turns out from Greek mythology and a lot of other, it's just not Greek mythology. Lamia actually turns up in a lot of folklore around the world. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a beautiful woman who's very evil. Sometimes it's a woman with the head and breast of a woman, the body of a snake. So I always love that when it's kind of the same demonic presence in different cultures. Boy, do I love that.
I'm trying to remember in the movie if there's ever a reveal of the demon. I don't think there is.
Not really.
I don't think so either. Just
not outside shadows. Yeah.
It's all shadow and sound, which is interesting because you think, given what you just described, that Raimi would have been like all over having like a big reveal of the demon's physical form, but maybe they didn't have the budget. Maybe they didn't have the budget, but yeah. No, there was no. It's interesting. There was never any big reveal of the demon, which is unlike him. I would have thought that at some point he would have wanted that.
Isn't it interesting, though, that the three of us who love this film, we're not like, oh, boy, that's the one missing element. He does so much with shadow and sound that I don't feel like we need it. I would have loved to have seen it, don't get me wrong.
Well, no, I obviously didn't miss it, right? I mean, I was just, I was like, well, I don't think he ever did reveal that, but it feels like he feels like he did. I think there might have been during which, and we'll get to the seance. But I think during the seance, I think there was like a flash, like a face that kind of came in very rainy fashion. It was like,
I know, like,
yeah. And then this guy here, can't really see him.
Perfect.
I love The Office, by the way. I absolutely love it.
Yes. If we can go back to the vomit for a second, do you know that?
Oh, by all means, please.
You know, Greg Nicotero made Lorna Rivers is like, obviously made her like a puppet, so she could actually literally vomit on Alison Lohman.
She made a puppet on.
So he was one who did the special effects work on this set. And so Lorna River, so now this is when, after the parking, I don't know if it's right after or maybe after she meets, Dilip Rao's character, in the getting her palm read or whatever.
The palm reader, yeah.
Yeah, but she goes home and now it's like the dream sequence where she like lays down and Mrs. Ganush is already like next to her and it's like, whatever. And it scared the shit out of me, by the way.
Yeah.
But, now they're wrestling and she's on top of the bed and that's when like the maggots come out. So that was like actually literally a pump that they shoved all these maggots in and they had Allison, screaming and you could hear Sam Raimi mouth wide open. and then they just shot this pump and everything just shot out of the mouth.
Oh my gosh.
That was, I think, the moment I was thinking of.
Oh, practical.
That was the moment I was thinking of where I was like, I think I turned to my wife and I said, this is the moment where Alison Lohman stopped acting.
Yeah.
Either that or
she was
the
never seen another movie again. This is it. She was like, nope.
She wasn't.
No.
This is
she really does raise baby goats. I wasn't even making that up. That's what she
she's lives on a farm somewhere, just doing her thing with animals.
I'm sure very happy. Yeah.
Aw.
Now we get to one of my favorite tropes in horror movies. I absolutely adore this, the ticking clock. When now we have the stakes. So now I can't remember if Alison Lohman knows it's 3 days or not, but we know that, okay, we know her eventual end. And I can't get enough of this in horror movies and in horror novels, Philip, and in horror novels. Okay, we've got this ticking clock going because it just, subconsciously or even consciously, you're like, okay, we're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. And you kind of, you go along for the ride. And that's exactly what happens. The stakes escalate. Her frantic nature escalates to the point where she's very much a tender soul who volunteers at the animal shelter. And as things progress and the situation becomes more and more dire, she sacrifices a kitten. Again, Raimi telling us, I don't know if you know the movie you're in. I've killed a child, and now I've killed a kitten.
Right.
And he's kind of like, he really is taking the piss in the best way possible and saying like, I don't know if you thought that this was going to be Spider-Man. It is not.
Right. Right.
And I mean, this is broadcasting it all over the screen and things just really start to pick up. So, we get her frantic nature. I guess the next real set piece that has stakes, of course, is the dinner with the parents, which it has already been, we already know is a tense situation for both of them. Because Justin, the mother is just like, who is this girl from the farm, this farm girl? So Justin Long knows what he's walking into. Alison Lohman overheard that horrific conversation with Justin and his mother. So he knows what she's walking into. And Raimi does what I also love in movies where everything, you think that the protagonist has got it nailed. Oh boy, everything's going to work out great.
Yeah.
And then he just rips it all away.
Now, I have a question. I'm wondering if, does she go back to the fortune reader teller guy
I don't know if she goes back to he does. I mean, he's at the seance.
It feels like there was, I know he's at the seance later. It feels like there was like a scene, like an important scene before she went to her parents where she kind of, because she thought, oh, right. So, okay. Yeah. So I know what I'm thinking of. So before she goes to the parents, she kills the cat, right? Does the cat?
She does. She thinks she's okay.
Right. And then she, sorry, I'm catching up to you. Yeah. So then she's like, she tells the boyfriend, it's all fine. Everything's taken care of. I think she goes back to the palm guy, the fortune teller guy. And I think he tells her the 3-day thing. I think he like shows her a book. And I remember there being the 3-day thing. And then he's like, you have to sacrifice. And he gives her the book on animal sacrifice. And she's like browsing that book. I think when like Justin Long comes in. And then in the heat of that moment where I think it's in the house where she's being subjected to all this terror and stuff, like things are bouncing. And then she just in like complete panic and desperation, she kills the cat. And that's when like, okay, everyone take a breath. We're good.
We think
and
we're
then
she goes,
and then she goes to the parents' house. Yeah.
Philip, you thank you for bringing me back. I get over my sneeze and I skip things. I'm just mentioning all that because I'm thinking about it through like I know the parents. I knew there was like I knew the parent scene was like, wait a minute. I think at that point she thought she was in the clear, and she was not. Yeah. We get some good exposition with Ram Dass, the palm reader. We get a great scene in the house when she goes back, and then she's sees the kitten, and I couldn't possibly do that. And then of course 2 minutes later, but we get Raimi going full Raimi, because this is really the scene. Well, but this scene with sound and shadow that we were talking about. Yeah, the door. It's the cabin from Evil Dead. Right. All over again. And again, in the best way possible. We get all of these great with crack sounds. And that one scene where it's the goat-headed demon coming up the stairs, and to your point, Shannon, it elongates and it's reaching out for her. Come on. It's so just craftsmanship like that, and that kind of eye for detail. It's I don't want to make an ass of myself, probably too late, but I don't want to make an ass of myself and say that, oh, it's so simple, because I don't know what it takes to do all that, but it just feels so simple, but so elegant in what the feeling that it gives the audience. And you're like, oh, this is just not good for Christine at all. Well, what I kept thinking of is that when, like I mentioned, I think before we started recording, like I've worked in film and TV for quite a long time, and on the day when they're filming that stuff, Raimi's got to be so confident in what he's going to do in post with the sound and everything. How so? He's literally, because I'm so fascinated by this, Philip. Because all you're hearing on set is Raimi going, probably sound, loud sound, or whatever, or left, right.
Probably.
They're just filming her reaction, and the camera's just like filming the stairs and the ceiling. And they're putting all that in. And there's probably a PA behind one of the doors, kind of rattling the door. So, but all you're hearing on set is just nothing. It's just Raimi saying what to film, and like, I'm sure I'd never worked with Sam Raimi, but I've worked with other directors, and I'm sure there was just some sort of like direction for the camera and for the actor to respond to, meaning like, where they're saying like up, left, right, and they're kind of doing this kind of thing, like classic Bruce Campbell in Evil Dead 2, where he's just like, doing this and then this and this, and you're just showing parts of the house, but none of the sound effects are done until weeks, months later. So for Raimi to have that confidence to be on the day on the set, just knowing what he needs, saying, just give me some whip pans of these different pieces of the room, and I'll deal with it, and I'll make it scary later. Is kind of he has to have it all in his head to such a degree that he knows not only what he's doing, what he needs on the day, but that he knows what it's going to be like, once he adds all the effects and all the sound and everything else. And that's impressive. That's like, it's not a skill that I don't think a lot of people have to be that secure, because when you're on set and you're filming, you've got 200 crew members there. You need to get what you're going to get, and that's all you're going to get. You know what I mean? Yeah. If that makes sense. Like, you got 12 hours to get your day, and then that's it. And then you're moving to another location. You're gone. So it was impressive to me watching the movie how much he must have known. I got it. Like, I'm good. Like, I know what I need, and I don't need more than that. And I was going to do it. I'm going to do it in post. I'm going to do it in post. I'm going to do it in post. And so that was, to me, very impressive, having been on the other side of the camera. Because I was thinking that during that scene that you're talking about, when she's running from the shadows and the noises, how hard that must have been to film, because she wasn't responding to anything but the director probably yelling out cues. The camera guy's responding to him yelling out, probably yelling out cues, but there's no like real actual noises or bangs or stomps or, anything like when you're doing the push into the shaking door, the shaking window, all that stuff, there's no giggling, demon. It's just some camera dude going like pushing in to in a quiet room. So it's kind of interesting.
Unless Raimi is giggling.
Yeah,
I'm sure he was. Yeah,
he probably was. Philip, I love you explaining this because I love to find out how the sausage is made. I could listen to these stories forever.
Absolutely.
I love the craft of it. I love the craft of filmmaking. It's so cool. It's just so cool.
Well, I at some point I'll tell you guys I worked on the movie The Prophecy with Christopher Walken and those guys, the original Prophecy.
Yeah.
You can't tease that and not say anything now.
So we don't want to tell the anecdote. I can make it quick. I don't want to mess up the flow.
Please take all the time you want.
Oh, well, there's a scene. Okay. So my claim to fame is that I'm actually in a scene with Christopher Walken. And the scene is that if you've seen The Prophecy, he's an angel and he has a sycophant, Adam Goldberg, I think is his name. And, who went on to be in like, Saving Private Ryan, of all things.
Yeah, great.
Anyway, and there's a scene where they're at a graveyard, and Christopher Walken is perched on the edge of a grave, and Adam Goldberg is in the grave, and he's digging out. He's trying to get to the corpse or whatever that they're going to use. And when we were filming, when the camera is outside the grave, so you can't see down into the grave itself. It's just Walken perched on the edge, and you kind of see dirt flying out of the grave and head of a shovel kind of hitting the thing. So Adam didn't want to go into the grave and do all the digging during Walken's lines when he wasn't on camera. So I was the on-set dresser, which means I was like on-set art department guy. And so they threw me in there. And so I was actually in the grave. So when you watch that scene and you see Walken perched on the end of the grave talking down to Adam Goldberg, he's talking to me, and I'm down there with a shovel throwing dirt out of the grave as high as I can. The director's going, higher, throw it higher, and I'm like trying to throw it as high as I can because I'm like 6 feet down. So you can actually that's actually me in the grave that Christopher Walken's delivering his lines.
Oh, I gotta watch that now.
Tomorrow. I'm watching it.
That's my claim to fame.
I'm gonna giggle. Oh well, okay. You've got a couple more, Philip. You've got.
There's also a scene in the classroom when Eric Stoltz is burned alive, where the back of the classroom, there's like these two doors and there's like a little wall between the two doors. And we were all behind that little wall. And I was there with Greg White and the director, and we had this like little monitor thing. And part of my job was I would look at the monitor and make sure that the set dressing was consistent with the last time we'd shot this part of the scene or whatever. So I'm always watching the monitor with the director and everything. But you can see my arm if you're really paying attention, they're panning back. You can see in the empty doorway where this empty classroom, you can see my arm sort of hovering.
You're like, you're in the
mid-air.
shot.
I was in the shot. They didn't catch it, but I was in the shot. So yeah, anyway, but the Christopher Walken thing is sort of my outside claim to fame. Yeah.
I can't get enough of it. I can't get enough of those stories. That's so
amazing.
Cool.
I was also a bum in Maniac Cop 3. I was an alley bum.
You buried the lead. How do you not talk about that? Come on.
I just laid there, dressed in bum clothes.
So I mean, you. Oh wait,
that was my first movie. That was the first movie I ever worked on. Maniac Cop 3 is the first movie I ever worked on. 1992.
Is that Lloyd Kaufman?
Lloyd Kaufman? No, the director.
That's Trauma. Who was the director of Maniac Cop 3?
Bill Lustig.
Sorry, Bill Lustig. Damn it. You're right.
Sorry.
I'm going to edit that out.
Yeah, Bill Lustig, and I can't remember the name of the gentleman who played Robert something. The guy who played Maniac Cop.
It's like Zadar, I think.
It's Robert Zadar. I think that's correct. Robert Davi was also in Maniac Cop 3, so there are two Roberts. But anyway, Robert Zadar was the nicest guy you'd ever meet in your life, and he had a big head like that. He had a very, he had a big head, so there was a little prosthetic, but it was mainly he just kind of looked like that. He was in a couple of the movies with like Sylvester Stallone and stuff like that. But he died young, not too long after that movie. So, but it sucks because I had a great photo with him. This is before cell phones, and we took a Polaroid because part of my job I always had a big stack of Polaroids on my belt with all the scene numbers written on each one. So whenever we film a scene, I'd have to take a couple pictures so that if we moved the camera, looked another way, and grips came in and moved all the stuff out so they could get the other shot, and then they moved back what we'd been filming the scene. I had to put it in
that continuity,
make sure it looked exactly the same way. Yeah. So so I had a Polaroid camera is the point. So we had this great Polaroid of me and Robert Zadar on set of Maniac Cop 3, and it got stolen, and I was very upset about it. And that's the end of that story.
I love. Look, it's going to be 5 minutes from now, and you're going to be like, I had a small scene in Aliens. All right.
I'll try and spread it out.
No big deal.
Keep the hits coming.
I love these stories. I absolutely love these stories. And look, I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there that maybe you end up an altar. I don't know. I mean, it seems like you have a lot of experience.
The week I'm going to be there, we're filming the swimming pool, and nobody wants to see me at a swimming pool. So I'll probably be hiding behind the camera the whole time. But yeah.
I'm so excited for you, but okay. I'm so sorry. I take us all over the map.
Right. Drag me to hell.
So now we've established, all right, Christine's killed the kitten. We go to the dinner with the parents. Everything seems like it is working out, and the mother starts to love her. And a mother loves the new girlfriend when she starts making fun of the son in front of her. So everything is hooking along, and the harvest cake is served. And then, of course, Sam Raimi can't help himself. An eyeball pops right out, and then I mean, all bets are off.
Yeah.
Doesn't it start with like a fly as well? Like a fly.
The fly was kind of. The fly was sort of a repeating thing. Yeah, like when she.
Yes.
There are little moments where she takes something like I don't know where the fly would buzz out and it'd be something. And there was flies in her house and stuff like that. It made me think because they had some shots where the fly was like crawling around her face. I always wonder how they did that. I've never worked on a movie where a fly was on someone's face. I did work on a movie where somebody had maggots, vomited maggots on them though. So
were they?
That was Children of the Corn 3. So.
Philip, are those real maggots? I mean, or are they just like pasta? No, they're real maggots.
No, they're real maggots. Like the bug wrangler who brings on the maggots or a spider or they have a bug wrangler guy who just does the bugs or a gal who just does the bugs. Yeah. No, it's real. It's gross. But yeah, I knew as soon as she walked in with that cake, I'm like, this is going to end poorly.
Oh yeah.
You just knew that. She's like, I baked it myself. And I'm like, oh, that's going to end. That's going to be bad. Sam Raimi was really, telegraphing that one. But that's another scene where when she first starts freaking out, she like turns and there's like the kitchen door and it's kind of, I think it's like rattling a little bit, but there's like a boom, 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 like a massive sound and it's slow push into this kitchen door. But there's nothing actually happened. It's just sound. And like I said, some production assistant behind the door probably shaking it and this like is pushing at the camera, but so how much he gets away with is pretty astounding.
Yeah.
Phil, I have to do this. I know we're all over the place, but that's okay. That's what the podcast is all about. I have to ask you this because you have so much experience in film. Do you think that Hitchcock, Raimi is maybe taking some stuff from Hitchcock Hitchcock is doing some of these things in his films. Is Hitchcock taking that from someone from earlier, like a Val Lewton or something like that? I don't know. I mean, I'm just putting this out there, but there has to have been in the 30s and 40s. I mean, maybe going all the way back to James Whale, where you don't have the technology. You really have to make do with just simple practical effects, but they're so insanely effective because they tap into our base instincts, our fear instincts, you know?
I mean, you have to look, and I feel ashamed to say it. I don't know who directed it, but you had to look at Night of the Hunter with the Robert Mitchum.
Oh, that was Charles Lawton. Yeah.
Where they used shadow so effectively in that movie to create menace, and some of this really stylized. There's some really stylized set pieces in there where they were using imagery, and like it was a pretty. I think for its time, it was a pretty. They were doing things I think that had really been done. I mean, and then you go back into stuff like The Seventh Seal and some of those, movies with death playing checkers and stuff like chess, and with Max von Sydow, and just creating that atmosphere of shadow and set design and all that kind of thing. But Bergman, yeah. So yeah, I think there was I think Hitchcock popular. I mean, I think Hitchcock did it. I think Hitchcock took it to the next level. And he made it terrible. He made horror movies. Night of the Hunter is really a horror movie, but at the time, I thought of like Nosferatu and things like that, which you could argue uses shadow and things of that nature. Cape Fear, the original. There were some early films that did it, but I think Hitchcock did it to such an extreme and did it so well and did it so consistently that he became sort of like the master of it. And I don't think anybody has ever used sound design, at least as far as horror is concerned, to the extent that Sam Raimi has, and which is why Evil Dead 2 was such a groundbreaking film, because nobody had ever seen anything like that. I mean, nobody had ever seen the camera, to your point, the camera driving through the tree. I mean, it had never been done. And I think that was one of the things that Raimi has built a bit of a career on. And that's what was so great about Drag Me to Hell, was he broke open the old toolbox, and he kind of started, and he brought some of that stuff out. And I thought that was what made it so fun as a fan, because he really hadn't done that in a very long time. And I don't know if he's done it, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, I don't know if he's done it much since.
No,
I would say no. I mean,
this is the last movie that he's like kind of went back to his roots on, which I'm sad about. I don't know why.
He's got a horror movie coming out. He's in pre-production now for a straight horror movie.
Is that the Ian Rogers?
I believe so. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. He's doing Ian Rogers. I want to say How to Sell a Haunted House, but it's not that, because that's the Greg Hendricks book. But it's something like that. Haunted House for Sale. Shit. I have the book in my bedroom. I can go grab it. But Ian Rogers is the author, and it's actually a book of short stories. And Sam Raimi optioned the entire book of stories.
Oh, that's exciting.
They're making a movie out of one of the stories, which is the title, also the title of the book, which is Sad Face. I can't remember the name of, but he's a good guy, a good friend, and great writer. So for those who haven't checked him out, if you want to get an early peek at Sam's next movie, you could read Ian's book today.
Oh shit! I'm going to get that. I'm absolutely going to get that. Thank you. Absolutely buying that. So the point I was trying to make, in my ham-fisted approach, was I love that you have these skills that previous directors had, and they find their way to other directors, and they kind of, they do their thing and they put their stamp on it, and it goes forward and forward and forward. Raimi, with Evil Dead and with Drag Me to Hell, I mean, it's almost like he's taking that skill set from these horror directors and thriller directors previously, and then he's taking some of the Three Stooges and some of EC Comics and some of Tex Avery cartoons, and it's this amazing incredible amalgam of all of these things, which then become quintessential Raimi. It's unto himself. That is a trademark Raimi style. And I find it fascinating that it really is. It's just like all these components, but he makes it his own. So it's very cool.
Yeah, you would think it's all like too much, but it's not. It's all like just like the perfect amount of like game chess pieces almost. They just all work together so well.
Yeah. No, I mean, Every House is Haunted is, by the way, the Ian Rogers book. Every House is Haunted.
It's bought. Yeah. It is bought.
Yeah, and that's a movie really making. But no, and I think about to your point about never being too much. It's like I think about that scene in Evil Dead 2 when he's kind of losing it, and all the animals are laughing. All the taxidermy heads on the walls are all laughing at him, and the trap doors banging up and down. I'll drag your soul to hell. I'll drag your soul to hell. And all the animals are laughing, and he's like, and he's all like, it's just like, no, it's perfect. It's like, it's perfect. And it's, he is such, this is kind of the story with the sound stuff. He has such control over what he's doing, and that he can take things that feel insanely manic and craft it into something very effective, that does not feels manic, but it doesn't feel out of control. It feels like, and I think with Drag Me to Hell, he really did a great job of keeping it very much like, you definitely feel like everything is very controlled, and from an artistic perspective, from a director's perspective, like he feels in total control of that movie. And there was one moment which we're going to get to, which is probably my favorite moment in the film, in which he pushes it. He's at 10, and he just goes to be alive in first. Well,
Philip, let's get to it, because it's a natural progression. I swear we're following a linear path. Let's get to it. Okay. You're talking about the seance, right?
I'm talking about the seance. Yeah. And so the parent scene is a disaster. By the way, I don't know who that actor is who plays the dad, but that guy's been in a million movies.
In everything.
Million movies.
Everything.
Great actor. I wish
I knew his name. Great character actor,
All I know is he was the coach in Rudy.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, Whippy, yes.
And among many other things.
I was surprised. Every movie.
He's in everything. But so they go to this, right? So the curse is not lifted. The cat didn't work. She goes and yells at the guy. The cat didn't work. I killed my cat. And he's like, there's only one more thing and then she needs the money.
Got to get 10 grand. Yep.
Got to get the 10 grand, which is hilarious because, because I'm like, how much do you make at the bank? You don't make enough to have 10. And then she goes and she like asks for the advance. And then she finds out she's not getting the job and all that stuff. And that's when the nosebleed and all that stuff happens. All that stuff is in those early scenes. And we haven't talked about the funeral scene, by the way. We skipped over the funeral scene, which is a classic
This is what
scene.
I do, Philip. I skip over good stuff. You're right. We got to go to the funeral scene, which is now, where we've established like, I guess this is it. The Baba Ganoush is dead. And the granddaughter is like, you're going to get everything you have coming to you, you deserve. Yeah. And you're like,
But there's that great moment where she falls onto the corpse. And the coffin collapses, and the corpse rolls onto her, and all the chemicals that they pumped into her body,
the embalming fluid, I think,
all the embalming fluid. Thank you. All came spewing out at Alison Lohman, and that was like another moment where I was like, she'll never work again. This is it. She will never put herself through
like that
this.
Starts the mouth trauma. I was like,
Yeah, there's a lot of mouth trauma, and but that was that scene was great. That was a great scene, and. But that's when she knew she was really in trouble. So then you go to this seance, which is when they decide they're going to kill the demon.
And now we have a callback to the beginning because we have the same woman now, you know, because that was 69 and now we're in 2009. So, you know, she's an older woman, but we have a glimmer of hope. And it's this beautiful mansion, ornate setting. I mean, I loved everything about it because there's almost it felt like a little bit of a callback to those movies I was talking about from the 40s and maybe some Hammer horror movies and some Amicus pictures, you know, where you have those lush, gorgeous sets, you know, and you can really dine out on them. Yeah. So and this is Raimi being Raimi because he sets up the seance. And to your point, Philip, the dial is going up. We hit 10 and then he just cranks it right up to 11. And we get one of my favorite Raimi tropes of all time, which is wire work and a dancing and someone possessed who is dancing jig in the air.
Yeah. The dancing jig. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was to your point. That's a classic Raimi moment with when the guy's levitating. And when the goat, you know, when the goat got possessed and the goat started yelling at everybody.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what he was saying. I don't know what the goat said. He probably said something like, "You're going to hell" or something. He said something. It was very Evil Dead 2, where the goat became possessed and started yelling at the thing. And then the guy would cut the goat's throat, which would have ended it all right then and there. And he tripped. Was that what happened? Did he trip?
I think the goat bites him actually.
I think
so then the goat passes to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But he passed it around.
Yeah. And that was the only frustrating thing for me about that scene was why are you standing all the way over there when you know that your whole job is to kill the goat? The second the goat's possessed, you got to kill it fast. And you're standing 10 feet away. Why are you just standing next to the goat with your knife at the ready?
So I was a little frustrated.
Yeah. I was a little frustrated about that because no, and he's like, "Oh, I had to run all the way across the room," and the goat bit him. And then he got possessed and he did the dancing jig thing and all that.
We wouldn't have got the dancing jig then, I guess.
Right. Yeah. The dancing jig. But yeah, I loved that whole scene. I thought it was the best scene in the movie.
Yeah.
It was such a great payoff.
They did try to use a real goat for that, by the way. At first,
very real.
They had a trained goat,
right?
And I forgot what the goat's name was, but it was a trained goat, you know. And at least according to, I think it was according to everybody, but especially Sam Raimi, it was too cute and lovable.
Oh, okay.
So Greg Nicotero and his team got to work and they made a goat, and it was all it was cables and wires. So that whole maybe 2 seconds when they start dragging the goat in, that was real. The rest of it was cables and wires.
Once it's hanging out by the table,
that's a puppet. The whole thing was a puppet. And
God, I love practical effects.
It was just, how uncanny is that? I'm I of course, until it got possessed and they killed it or whatever, I figured that was puppetry, but I thought them at least the first portion of it with it just sitting by the table, that was a real goat. But apparently it was kind of like a puppy, it just kept just going
right.
You know, so it's no, he's too cute and lovable. Get him out of here.
Yeah, you never want to have a real animal on set if you can get around it, But and then I guess she did something to drive the demon out of the guy.
She does her incantation, and she does save the day.
And then the demon comes out. The demon escapes, which is probably one of the few visual effects in the film.
Yeah,
is the demon. The spirit of the red spirit of the demon escaping the guy's mouth or whatever. And then she's like, "That's it. You did it. We win." And then she's like, "No.
Sorry.
We just drove it out of the room. It's still coming for you." Which is when she makes the hard decision to give the gift of the button.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say then she try to give it to Stu? She plays with the idea.
She plays with the idea of giving it to Stu, and then she can't do it.
She wanted to give it to the old man or the old woman.
She could kill a kitten, but she couldn't give it to Stu.
I know.
I
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Stu immediately fucks her by going to David Paymer, and it's like, it was all her idea, but then he gets fired for it. But she should have given the button to Stu.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she should have given the button to Stu. I think at that point, I could be wrong about this. I'm trying to remember the order sequence. But I know, when the button and the coin envelopes got switched was when Justin Long was taking her home. So I think even if she had given it to Stu, I think that would have been the coin.
100% right. It would have been the coin.
Yeah. I think
I don't think it would have worked. I don't think it would have worked anyway. But
because Justin Long's got the button. Long has got the button at this point. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Mm.
So she does she goes to give it. So which is I miss. But I'm going to take back what I said earlier about the seance being my favorite scene. I'm going to go with the graveyard being my favorite scene.
I'm going to cheat and say the graveyard into the train station,
train station. Okay.
I mean, that's my favorite 12 minutes of the movie. I mean, so to Christine's credit, she goes back to Ram Dass and she's like, look, maybe is it possible that I could give it back to the corpse? And he's like, maybe, he's not 100%.
No one's tried that before, but you could give it a go.
That graveyard scene is just perfection. Again, kind of throwing off for me. I don't, you guys might have a different opinion, but throwing off huge Hammer vibes. Graveyard at night.
It also reminded me a lot of, and I don't know who was riffing off who, but there's a moment in that scene after she's dug up the grave, dug the grave and broken the coffin open to reveal the old woman and everything. But it's a great moment in that scene where she holds up the envelope and she like screaming to the heavens, and she's like, I give this gift, to blah, blah, blah. And she makes it's like this big pronouncement that she's making. And the camera is like, it's such a Scorsese shot. It reminded me so much of Robert De Niro in Cape Fear, near the end of that movie when he's doing a lot of like fist shaking and screaming into the camera, kind of, screaming at the heavens, but the camera's kind of like above. And I love that shot so much where she lifts her head to the heavens and is holding the envelope, and she's like, I hereby give this gift to blah, blah, blah. And then she shoves it into the old lady's mouth.
He builds that scene up with everything,
so
with
great.
The elements and the music and the lighting and the framing. He builds it up, and then he does such
mud
a
in the rain.
He does such a fantastic job of your like, oh, she did it. I mean, you guys are going to be like,
right, because he had to really sell to the viewer that this scene is big enough that you are buying that she's won.
Philip, I fell for it. I fell for it.
You couldn't it couldn't just be like a thing where she like does it because you'd be like, I don't know if I buy that. It doesn't feel like big enough. But it was like such a big scene. It was like a good long scene too, and had so much. You had like the poltergeist moment where she falls in the water with the corpse and all that as the grave is filling up with water super fast. By the way, the grave filled up with water super fast. But anyway, and then the cross falls and hits her on the head and all that stuff. Like there's so many. It was so there was so many elements in that scene where she had to really make a fight. He really got across that it was like a big fight. And then she climbs out and she's like, oh my God, I did it. I finally did it.
I forgot what movie I was in. When Sam Raimi has been telling us all along, he's like, did you see the eyeball in the cake? Did you see her kill a kid?
Right.
Did you see the kid I killed in the beginning? And he totally got me. I'll come to it, guys. He totally got me. And then when we get to Union Station, she buys the gorgeous new coat, and these two young kids are in love, and Justin Long is going to propose.
Yeah, he's got the ring.
Yeah.
And they're going to Santa Barbara for the weekend to stay in his parents' cabin. Yeah, and it's funny because it was interesting because when I was watching it, even knowing how it ended, because I'd seen it obviously many times before, but when I was watching it recently, my rewatch, I was like, why is she buying a fucking coat? Like, I think I actually said that out loud. I was like, why is she buying a coat? And like, of all the weird, what? Like, she's like, I want the coat in the window. She's that one. And then she did the whole thing like she had the bag to get the coat, right? Because the woman was like, we're closed. And she's like, no, please, I just want that coat. And I was like, what's with the coat? Like, what's that to do with anything? And then it's this, obviously it's to sell you got a new coat, so you don't need the button anymore, which was chef's kiss.
Yeah,
and then here's the other great thing about that moment. Raimi wasted no time. Like, he wasn't like the button reveal, and then like now there's going to be some dialogue or some back. No, that was like it. It was like she backed up, she fell, train.
She is dead within a minute.
Within like 30 seconds, she's dead. Right? From the minute he reveals the button, I bet if you were to time it, I would say I would put the over under 30 seconds. I bet you it's no more than 30 seconds between when he goes for that button.
25.
Right. And then she's getting literally being dragged to hell. And the train's coming and the whole thing. And that look, that shot of Justin Long looking down and crying.
He's so dumbfounded.
Wrecked. Just wrecked.
Yeah. Because he didn't believe this whole time, right?
The whole time. There was so much. He crushed that moment because his face is shock of what he just saw. The knowledge, to your point, Shannon, the knowledge that he just now is realizing that everything that had happened is true, that was real. The fact he just lost his fiance he was in love with. I mean, all that stuff was on his face in that last.
And then smash, drag me to hell.
And then bam.
The big smash to black. Yeah. Amazing.
To your point, Sam Raimi's control over what he's doing is so evident in that scene because the three of us know, of course, we won't do any names, that's not what this podcast is about, but we all know that there are other horror directors that would have dragged that scene out. They would have dragged running around frantically and it would have been 10 minutes long and it would have lost all of the urgency, and he just dispatches her within to your point, 30 seconds. And
we're like, come on,
chef's kiss.
Well, you know what I take away from that. Honestly, my takeaway from that is that he's trusting his audience to know. He doesn't have to over explain what's going on.
Wish there was more of that, to be honest. I do.
It's literally just him showing her the button, and then there is some dialogue. When they show her reaction, knowing that she's dead, you can hear him saying, "Yeah, you must have thought it was my coin or something." He says he does. There is a line where he throws out, and I almost have a feeling that was maybe done in post. Like maybe they're like, maybe we need one more little thing here to kind of make sure that people get what's going on. So he does throw out a line off camera, like, "Oh, you must have swapped. You must have mistaken it for my coin." Or something. He says something to that effect about the coin, and I think that's just all Raimi wanted to do is like they got it, they get it. Like she thought the button was the coin. But yeah, the fact that he just trusted the audience to be like, oh no, that whole time she didn't have. I think when I first saw the movie, this is if I'm being honest, I think when I first saw the movie, I think I was a little confused after the fact. I think I was a little bit like, wait a minute. What did she put in the woman's mouth? The movie came out like 25 years ago, so I'm going by memory, but I think I asked that question of whoever I was watching the movie with. And they were like, oh no, because they swapped the coin in the button. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. And it was on rewatches, it was more obvious.
Yeah.
Did you guys
it's easy to miss
trouble with that the first time you saw it? You got it right away? Do you remember?
I remember thinking, seeing him putting that coin in an envelope, and I remember watching it in the theater as going, uh-oh.
Yeah, and then she had the big paper spill.
I caught it immediately. Yeah, I was just. I mean,
half of the podcast.
But I didn't know I was going to get that good of an ending. You know, like that's. It's not like I saw that coming, but I did see like I'm like, oh, some switcheroo is going to come into play, and it's going to be so bad.
Because that's so good. That is such a tightrope walk as a director, because he's got to be like, it can't be obvious that it's been switched, because then all this stuff with the graveyard and the stew, all that stuff doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's got to be there so that I'm being fair. And that's when she has that. So she has a moment where she spills her purse in the car, and she goes, and that's when she grabs the wrong envelope. But yeah, that's a tightrope walk for a director, because you got to give just enough to be fair, but not so much that people aren't. Yeah, right. That people aren't thinking that she did it, and that she won, that she returned the button.
Because ironically, they thought that these smaller items. Because I've definitely done it too. Like, this really small item, I don't want to lose it, so I'm gonna put it in a big envelope. So it's it's easy to find, you know.
And they did make a point. Yeah, they did make a point of showing her holding the envelope. I noticed this a few times, where you could see the round indentation, so that you were like, so the viewers were like, oh yeah, no, it's not. I don't know, just to create a little more like, no, really, guys, this is the button. Look, here's the little indentation. See, it's all good.
And it's such a throwaway in the beginning in Justin Long's office when she gives him the quarter. That he puts it. It's such a throwaway, but it's there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff that directors must be like. Yeah, it was intricate plotting, and it really kept me up at night, and I have panic attacks, and no one really appreciates it. It's so thankless, but it all comes together to make such an incredible movie, and they don't get enough credit for it. They really don't.
We appreciate it. We really do.
and that is why I am a plotter. When I'm as a writer, I'm a plotter, not a pantser, because I don't want to. I want to know what's going to happen before I start. I want to know what's going to happen before I start writing the book, because I want to be able to do stuff like that. I want to, and you can always go back. Obviously, you can always go back and add it. And I had to do that. In the last book I just wrote, I had to do that. But yeah, you want to be able to put those things in as you're writing it, so that you're kind of, so that you can. To make it, I think it's smoother when you do it that way versus going back and adding stuff. Sometimes it can read a little clunky. I'll notice when I'll read a book and I'll be like, I think this author added that after the fact. But anyway, this is one of the reasons why it's nice to be able to have know the whole story ahead of time, so you can make those kind of seed, those kind of things. But yeah, what a great moment, a great twist, a perfect ending. Has there ever been a more perfect ending to a film? I don't know. I think you could argue there has not been a more perfect ending.
It's really good.
Than Drag Me to Hell. I mean, really, if you think about
newer films, I'm going to go with it's rare. I can't think of anything newer. You know.
Yeah. I mean, the actual ending, the last 30 seconds, like that final. To your point, Sean, the button, the backing up on the platform, the falling, the train coming. Her being dragged to hell, his face, boom, cut to the big title card. I mean,
you may have it.
You may have it.
I can't think. I honestly can't think of any other horror movie that sticks the land. I mean, it is the Simone Biles of endings. Yeah. It sticks the landing. 10 out of 10, no notes. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I loved Aliens is one of my favorite movies of all time. Thing is one of my favorite movies of all time. Jaws is one of my favorite movies of all time. But I don't know if they have that kind of
last 2 minutes. Yeah, that last 2
30
minutes.
seconds. That leading that last
I liked Cabin in the
almost
Woods.
kind of like
it's not as theatrical, I would say, but I liked the way it ended. I actually really enjoyed the opening more so in that movie.
Yeah, the Cabin in the Woods is a great example when the giant hand comes up, right, and crushes the cap. Yeah, that's a great moment. But I don't know if it has the emotional impact that this does.
No, that's what I was gonna say. And like that's what I mean. Like I get your point that it has there's like action, there's emotion. Yeah.
Philip,
and
this is going to torment me.
Coming.
Yeah.
It's
just gonna torment me.
How often do you land in the last 30 seconds of a movie? Do you land a huge twist, a brutal murder, a shocking, a shockingly cinematic final shot, and then to top it all off, as if you to take you to 11 again, as if you couldn't really nail it any harder, then you got the hard cut to black with the title Drag Me to Hell.
I mean, someone crying.
Yeah, I'm thinking of The Howling.
Yeah.
I'm thinking American Werewolf in London. But both great endings. They don't do it. You may have crushed it.
I look at. I'm not. This is something that you can discuss on your podcast in future episodes, but I'm going to make the argument that it's I'm going to make the argument that Drag Me to Hell has the greatest ending of any horror movie ever. And when I say greatest ending, I mean, look, I want to caveat it. Greatest ending, I mean like the greatest last 30 seconds of a movie. Like obviously there are great endings in all these great movies. Thing had a great ending. Oh, I'm not saying the way the story ended.
Nope, you're 30 seconds.
The way the film ended, that last 30 seconds, is there a greater last 30 seconds in any movie? I don't think so.
Right now,
I would make the argument.
We're going to
absolutely have the title.
Yeah,
I agree. No, you've got the title right now for sure. There are a lot of contenders that we're going to have on. So we'll always give you credit. Phil, I promise you, we'll always give you credit. When we have
you let me know.
On, yeah, we'll let you know what their argument is, but we'll be fair. If they can't sell it, we'll be like, no, Philip is still the champion. He still has the best ending.
I will put the last 30 seconds of that movie against any movie.
Oh,
side by side.
Oh, I love it.
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to see Nat Cassidy. I'm going to see Clay McLeod Chapman. I'm going to Emily Use's her horror for weenies. She's doing a thing in Brooklyn, and I'm going to ask them both. I'm going to say tell them that Philip said, because I know those guys. Say Philip said that Drag Me to Hell is the best last 30 seconds in every movie, and he defies you. I love it.
You to tell him that he's wrong, because I don't think they will be able to. I don't think they'll be able to.
This is amazing. This is so much fun.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, I love
Clay it. Clay teaches screenwriting courses, so he may have a little more. He may have some ideas, but and that's seen every horror movie they ever made, I'm sure. But I stand by it. I'm well as well. Something may come up. That's the hill I'm dying on.
I'll let you know. I'll let you know what they say. They're either going to agree or they'll challenge, and I'll let you know. I'll DM you.
If they challenge, let me know. Yeah,
we'll message you immediately.
Oh yeah, please.
We did a great job with
live.
Oh, don't you make a promise that you won't keep?
Yeah, absolutely. If I'm around, if I'm here.
We did a fantastic job with Drag Me to Hell. Now, Philip, I know we've gone on long, but we do a thing. We do 3 questions at the end of every episode. Do you have time for it? It'll take like 5 minutes.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, great. So the first question is, what is the scariest horror movie you've ever seen?
Scariest horror movie I've ever seen? There's this movie called Bobby. It was based on a script by Richard Matheson.
Oh.
And it's about a woman and a son, and the son dies, and the woman does a satanic ritual thing to bring the son back to life. And the son comes back to life, and the whole movie happens over the course of one night, I believe. I haven't seen it in a while, but I'm pretty sure that's all one night.
Is this?
And he comes back, and that's the movie. I've been trying to remake this movie. I've been trying to remake this movie forever. I've talked to producers. I've begged producers to get the rights to it. I want to remake it.
What year did this movie come out?
I don't know. I would say I'd be guessing, but I would guess late 70s.
I mean, you had me at Matheson. Bobby, okay, I love it. I've never seen this movie. Philip, I'm going to embarrass myself.
I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you how it ends. I'm not going to tell you anything else. Because
I love it.
And well, unfortunately, I can't tell you.
No, don't spoil it.
I can't tell you anything.
Don't spoil. But I love. Thank you so much for putting a movie.
That's the movie that has, from a young age, stayed with me the longest and the deepest cut of my psyche.
I don't care where I have to find this. I am finding Bobby.
I don't know how it's aged. I haven't seen it in probably 30 years. I mean, it's been a long time. I'm old. So,
Philip, I'll challenge you on that. But Philip, you're talking to a guy who watches gargoyles, made for TV gargoyles from when I watched as a kid and still gets scared just like I did as a kid. Yeah. So I can dial in to whatever age is appropriate. Right. All right. That's fantastic. I love that. Shannon, do you never remember the second question? Do you want me to ask it?
I know. I never remember any of the questions.
Okay. What horror movie is considered absolute trash that you will defend to the death?
Horror movie that's considered trash that I would defend to the death. That's a tough one because a lot of the movies that I think, or a lot of the movies that people think are trash, the horror community in general doesn't think are trash. Like,
they embrace.
Yeah.
They
you
embrace
can give us one of those. That's okay.
Trilogy and Terror or Leprechaun, all that kind of stuff. I'm wondering if there's a movie I've ever like really defended that a lot of people didn't like. It's a tough question. I know there was a great. See, I don't think people think this movie's trash though. I was going to mention the John Carpenter movie when they're at the church and the devil comes.
Prince of Darkness.
Prince of Darkness. That movie is also terrifying, but I'd put Bobby over it. I don't know if I have a good answer for you because I don't think any of the movies that I would say. Here's what I'll say as far as an answer, so you have an answer. But because I just recently watched. I think it's called Demon Hunter. It was a Tales from the Crypt movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh. Okay. Yes.
And
Demon
Night.
Demon Night.
Demon Night with a K. Like
yeah.
Night. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think a lot of the horror community people think it's trash, but I think generally speaking, it's not seen as a cinematic classic.
True.
It's Tales from the Crypt presents. But I just watched that movie recently for the first time, and I was like on Facebook the next day going like, "What the fuck is this movie? This movie is amazing!" And people were like, "Oh my god, yeah, it's a great movie." Yeah, that's a great movie, but it's trashy.
And that's a great answer. That's a great answer.
And it's definitely probably like, yeah, I would say that would be the one that I would defend as being a great movie, even though I could see a lot of people saying like, it's low quality, it's low budget, it looks trashy. It's kind of like it's Tales from the Crypt movie. Like, I don't know, but yeah, so I'll go with Demon Night.
That's good by us. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Shannon, you want the third one? Can you remember it?
No.
I'm going to ask it then. Okay, our last question is.
Sorry.
And Philip, you can say, you know what? Every film is precious the way it is. I wouldn't do this. But if there was a movie that you could remake, oh shit, you already said it. It's Bobby. we already got the answer to that question. I was going to say, if there was one movie that you could remake, what would it be?
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm not a big fan of the reboot or whatever, or the remakes.
Totally fair.
Yeah, but I think the reason I think I would like to remake Bobby is because it was a made-for-TV movie, which is Matheson's bread and butter in the day. It was pretty schlocky the way it was, just the way it was filmed and everything. The sound wasn't great. The acting wasn't great. Even though it's just two actors. No offense to people who are watching this who think it otherwise, but I think if you remade that movie and just put a little more money into, gave it a bigger budget, and really kind of played out the creepy factor, I think there's a lot more you could do with the movie. And I think that would be a movie that would be probably better if it was remade well than maybe the original. Even though the original has even though the original was great, and like I said, it was very scary, I do think it could be remade. And then people who haven't seen it, which is most people, I think.
Yeah,
because if you haven't seen it, just imagine.
Find it on IMDb. Like, it's not coming up at all.
Yeah. So another reason to remake it, because I think it would be so fresh for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that's why I would say Bob, because I think sometimes movies should just be what they are and be of the time that they are and all that kind of stuff. So, but I think this is a movie that could use, like, it was so low budget, and it was like I said, it was late night made for TV movie. So I could see it being like a feature and being really, really terrible, really, really scary. If it was
putting all the good vibes out there that you can secure this and do it one day, that sounds incredible.
I actually reached out to a while back. I reached out to Matheson's son, RC, right? RC Matheson, who's around. He's on Facebook and stuff like that. And he was a writer as well. He wrote some horror stuff, short stories or whatever. I reached out to RC Matheson and I asked about the rights. And he said that the rights were, he was very nice about it. He said that the rights were not owned by the estate, that they were owned by the studio.
The studio. Okay. Yeah. All right.
He said, yeah. And then he was like, yeah, in those days, no, writers didn't have that kind of pull. It was kind of, so yeah, the studio, my son's living, sorry. The studio,
okay.
owns the right. So, but I did reach out, and then I asked another producer. I was pitching him the way I'm pitching you. I was like, dude, because we're working on some projects together, and he assured me he was going to look into it. So I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
All right, awesome. Yeah. All right. Keep putting it out there. It'll happen for sure. Yeah.
I'm going to see you're going to post on Instagram the article in Variety. Philip Fracassi now doing Bobby, and I'm going to be like, "Hey, did it? That son of a bitch did it!"
Yeah, right. Yeah, I would love it. Yeah, but I don't know many. I would like to. I don't know if I'd want to like direct or anything, but I would definitely want to write it, and I would love to bring in like someone like Rob Savage or someone like that to do it. But somebody could, or Flanagan would be perfect, because he can do that kind of like, he can do that sort of like contained. It's very contained. It all takes place in one night in one house.
Like chamber piece, yeah.
Yeah,
I love that stuff.
Yeah, maybe one day.
It'll happen.
We're putting it out there into the ether. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Philip, we can't thank you enough. This has been so much fun. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Yeah.
I know we did. So Drag Me to Hell. We crushed it. Shannon, you know what to do now. Take us out of here.
Yeah, and that's a cut.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Shortcuts. I hope you enjoyed hearing it just as much as we enjoyed recording it for you. If you did enjoy it, would you please leave us a review on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, the bathroom wall at the local gas station, wherever. We'd really appreciate it. If you rate and review us, it goes a long way to getting the word out about Sinful Cuts. Can't thank you enough. Until next time,